We begin today with Guantanamo Bay. As the hunger strike there continues, a general is now telling Congress that the base needs $170 million for repairs. General John Kelly, the top commander of the U.S. Southern Command, says the base is in dire need of upgrades. He says the barracks and dining hall are deteriorating there. General Kelly says these repairs are critical for U.S. troops stationed in Guantanamo, but he says conditions detainees are living in are just fine. This after prisoners are still on a hunger strike after 44 days. They say it's to protest the conditions they live in and that copies of the Quran were taken from them and mishandled. But General Kelly says the reason for the prisoners going on strike is because they're angry at the president for not closing the prison like he said he would. To discuss, I'm joined now by retired Colonel Morris Davis, and he's now, he was a former chief prosecutor at Guantanamo Bay. He is also a law professor at Howard University. Welcome, Colonel. Great to see you.
Thank you.
So the general is now asking for $170 million to upgrade a prison that the president vowed to close. So is this a sign that Guantanamo Bay is not closing anytime soon?
Well, it certainly appears that way. It was interesting. General Kelly said, you know, Guantanamo was intended to be a temporary facility. So the things that were built were intended to last for a few years, not for a decade or more. And, you know, we're in our 11th year now. So it's another, what, 150 to 170 million on top of the 120 million that's spent every year just on the recurring cost to keeping the detainees there.
Right. So going along with what the general said, so, I mean, was the intention for this place to shut down, but now we're just in so deep that that's just not feasible.
Right. I mean, when I was involved as chief prosecutor, we designed the expeditionary courtroom, which was a prefab type building because it was intended to be used for a couple of years and then disassembled and taken apart and never used again. But, you know, that was back in 2006, 2007, and the clock keeps running, and the facilities just weren't meant to last for 10 or 11 years.
Right. I want to take a look now at some of the things that General Kelly pointed out as things he needs money for. One of them, a new $12 million dining hall for the troops, a new $11 million hospital and medical units for detainees, and almost $11 million for a communications network facility to store data and computer records and things like that. So aside from the hospital, Gitmo, General Kelly says detainees, the conditions they're living in that they are subjected to are just fine. Is that the case?
I haven't been down there in a couple of years, but I believe that's probably correct because their facilities were built modeled after prisons here in the U.S., so they were mainly more permanent type structures. But as the general said, a lot of these guys are getting older. They've been there 10 or 11 years, and some are beginning to get into that geriatric medical state that Gitmo really wasn't equipped to handle. So, you know, it's really interesting to me. You've got the fiscal conservatives here that are trying to pass a budget with drastic cuts, but here we've got Guantanamo where they want to spend $120 million a year to keep, in essence, 80 guys that we really want to keep incarcerated,
right,
plus another $150 million on top of that. So, you know, in a few years that adds up to a considerable amount of money. Now, they were talking about defunding NPR. I mean, the NPR budgets you could fund for a couple of decades based on what we're spending at Gitmo.
And they're asking for millions and millions of dollars on something that President Obama said was going to close long ago. You talked about the health concerns that they're facing there, and many of them have been there for quite a while, over a decade. And now there's this hunger strike, which surely isn't making their health conditions any better. The detainees say that they're going on a hunger strike to protest that some of their personal belongings, Qurans, were mishandled.
Right.
But the general came out and said something different. They said that they're actually angry at President Obama for not closing the prison like he said that he would. Is that the real reason?
Well, I don't know. Apparently they had hope and change in mind as well when President Obama took office, and I guess they've been just as disillusioned as a lot of us that bought into that slogan as well. But, you know, you've got a majority of the men at Guantanamo, 86 of the 166 who have been cleared for transfer, who have been in confinement now for, you know, more than a decade in some cases. So for them, the hunger strike, you know, they're kind of out of sight and out of mind, and the only way to potentially call attention to it is to do something drastic like a hunger strike. So the numbers, you know, DOD has said the numbers gone from 7 to 14 to 21 to, I believe, 25 is the last official number. But if you talk to some of the attorneys that have been down there, they say that's a lowball figure, that it's probably 3 or 4 times that.
Right, and now they are getting some attention. What do you think it will take for this base to close down?
Well, I think it's going to take the American people paying attention and demanding that it be closed. I mean, if you look at the issue with drones, I mean, the program with drones went on for a number of years and not much really happened until suddenly people here paid attention. It took Rand Paul, doing a filibuster.
Right.
And it's going to take the American public focusing their attention on Guantanamo. And unfortunately, it takes sometimes people dying for that.
So I guess maybe it's more awareness of the issue to get people,
well, and the waste of money.
talking.
There's a lot of money being wasted at Guantanamo, and a lot of our prestige has gone down the tubes as well.
Right.
So there's just no good reason to keep it open.
Colonel, really great to have you here. That was retired Colonel Morris Davis, law professor at Howard University.